She just needs the warmth of a mother. Nina's voice was soft, almost lost beneath the echo of the child's desperate cries, yet the words seemed to freeze the entire restaurant. Nina moved slowly toward the table, ignoring the subtle warning look from the manager. One of the guards shifted his stance immediately. Adrian turned slightly. Their eyes met. Nina stopped at a respectful distance, her voice gentle. "Sorry, I'm sorry," she said softly. "I see the little girl crying so much." Lily's fingers twisted tighter in Adrian's jacket. Nina continued, her tone calm and steady. "She just needs the warmth of a mother." One guard frowned slightly. Adrian watched Nina carefully. "You are interrupting a private evening," he said calmly. "I know," Nina replied honestly, "but she's not crying for attention." Lyly cried harder, her small voice cracking from exhaustion. "She's crying because she thinks no one is coming back," Nina added quietly. The sentence struck deeper than expected. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. "That is not information available to staff," he said. "I didn't need information," Nina answered. Children grieve out loud. Lyly gasped between sobs. Nina slowly lowered herself until she was eye level with the child. "Hi, sweetheart," she whispered. Lyly did not respond. Her face pressed against Adrian's shoulder. Nina spoke again. "You don't have to be brave right now." Adrian noticed something shift in Lyly's breathing. Nina extended her hand slowly. "I'm not going to take you away," she said softly. Lyly hesitated. Then her tear-filled eyes lifted slightly toward Nina. "May I?" Nina asked Adrian. Adrian paused. The restaurant felt suspended in silence. Finally, he nodded once. Nina gently slid her arms under Lyly, slow enough not to startle her. Lyly resisted for half a second, then collapsed into Nina's shoulder, as if her small body had been waiting for that exact moment. Nina began softly humming a lullaby, the melody slow and steady. Her hand moved gently across Lily's back in rhythmic comfort. "You are safe," Nina whispered. Lily's crying weakened. Her breathing slowed. Her small fingers gripped Nina's uniform lightly. Then something unexpected happened. Lyly looked up at Nina's face, eyes still wet with tears. Her lips parted. "Mommy." Nina froze for a brief second. Lyly smiled, a small, fragile smile that seemed almost forgotten. The crying stopped completely. Silence filled the restaurant. If this moment touched your heart, tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Your voice matters, and your story may inspire someone else today. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel so more meaningful stories about love, loss, and quiet courage can reach those who need them most. Adrian stared at Nina, something unreadable passing behind his controlled expression. Lyly rested her head against Nina's shoulder as if she had finally found something familiar in an unfamiliar world. "She hasn't smiled since the accident," Adrian said quietly. Nina's voice softened further. "Children don't look for perfection," she said. "They look for comfort." Lily's thumb moved slowly toward her mouth, her breathing calm now. Adrian spoke again. "What did you just do?" "I listened," Nina replied gently. Lyly remained relaxed in her arms. "You said mother," Adrian noted. "She needs one," Nina said quietly. "She already had one." "Yes," Nina answered respectfully. "And now she doesn't." The honesty of the statement settled heavily. "You are bold," Adrian observed. "No," Nina said softly, "just familiar with loss." Lily's fingers tightened slightly in Nina's sleeve. Adrian asked, "You work here?" "Yes." "For how long?" 6 months. "You approached knowing who I am." "I approached because she needed someone." Adrian reached into his jacket slowly, removing a simple card. "I will pay you $15,000 a month," he said calmly. Nina blinked. "To do what?" "To care for Lyly. I am not a nanny. You are the only person she did not reject." Lyly rested comfortably against Nina's shoulder, calm as if she had never cried at all. "I don't work for dangerous men," Nina said carefully. Adrian's voice remained steady. "You already helped one." Silence stretched between them. "She called you mother," Adrian added quietly. Nina swallowed gently. "She called for comfort," Nina said. "And comfort answered," Adrian replied. Lyly shifted slightly, still peaceful. "She is my brother's daughter," Adrian said. Nina nodded slowly. "They died recently?" "Yes." "How long?" 8 weeks. Nina exhaled softly. "She still expects them to come home." Adrian did not respond. Children waited longer than adults. "How much do you earn here?" Adrian asked. 38,000 a year. "I will pay you more in 1 month." You think money is the reason I helped her? No, Adrian said calmly. I think she is. Lyly slept lightly in Nina's arms. For what it is worth, Adrian added quietly. You achieved something highly trained professionals could not. Nina carefully returned Lyly to Adrian's arms. Lyly did not cry. She simply held on to Adrian's collar calmly. I need time, Nina said. You have 24 hours, Adrian replied. He handed her the card. Heavy paper, minimal ink. Adrian Volkov. As Nina stepped away, Lyly looked over Adrian's shoulder toward her. Her small hand lifted slightly. Not crying, just watching. Adrian spoke quietly, almost to himself. Find out why my daughter trusts a stranger. Adrian did not read the card menu that night. He rarely did. Routine was a discipline he valued. But tonight routine had already been broken the moment Lyly stopped crying in the arms of a stranger. He sat in the back seat of the black Mercedes, the city lights sliding across the tinted window in long golden streaks. Manhattan at night always looked composed, almost dignified, as if the city itself understood the importance of appearances. Lyly slept quietly against his chest. She had not slept peacefully like this since the accident. 8 weeks. 8 weeks of restless nights. Sudden screams, tiny hands reaching in panic for people who would never return. Adrian adjusted the blanket around her shoulders, careful not to wake her. Across from him, Viktor Petrov, head of security for over 15 years, spoke carefully. We ran her name already. Adrian did not look up. And? Nina Bennett. 29. No criminal record. No suspicious financial activity. Lives alone in Queens. Mother deceased 3 years ago. Cancer. Adrian's jaw shifted slightly. Employment history? Mostly service industry. Hotel housekeeping. Restaurant work. No connections to known groups. No social media patterns suggesting external influence. Very minimal presence. Adrian nodded once. Lyly stirred softly but did not wake. She called her mother, Viktor added carefully. Adrian finally looked up. Yes. That concerns you? It concerns me when my daughter trusts someone faster than I do. Viktor gave a small nod. Trust was currency in Adrian's world, and currency was never given away lightly. The car turned through iron gates that opened automatically. The Volkov estate sat quietly beyond the tree line. Lights warm behind tall windows. The architecture reflected older values, stone, symmetry, permanence. Adrian preferred environments that reminded people stability was possible. Inside, Mrs. Calder waited in the foyer. Margaret Calder had worked for the Volkov family for 22 years. She was a woman in her early 60s who believed discipline and kindness were not opposites. She fell asleep? Mrs. Calder asked softly. Yes. Mrs. Calder's eyes softened slightly. That is the first time in weeks. Adrian handed Lyly carefully into her arms. Lyly did not wake. I want the guest suite prepared, Adrian said calmly. Mrs. Calder understood immediately. You expect the young woman to accept. I expect nothing, Adrian replied, but he had already made space. Later that evening, Adrian stood alone in his study. The room smelled faintly of leather and old paper. Books lined the walls, history, law, philosophy, biographies of men who built empires through discipline rather than chaos. He turned Nina's name over quietly in his thoughts. Why did Lyly trust her? Why did the child smile? Why did the crying stop so quickly? Control did not come from luck. Everything had explanation. Everything had pattern. Except children. Lyly's psychologist had used words like trauma response, emotional shock, attachment disruption, terms that sounded precise yet solved nothing. At 10:42 p.m., Adrian's phone vibrated once. Unknown number. He answered. Yes. A pause. Mr. Volkov, this is Nina. Her voice carried the same calm tone as before. You decided quickly, Adrian said. I haven't decided yet. Then why call? I have questions. Adrian sat. Ask them. I don't want to be controlled, Nina said directly. You would not be. I don't want my life monitored every second. You would have privacy. I don't want to be treated like property. You would not be owned. A pause. And if I decide to leave later? You may. And if your enemies threaten me? They will not. That is not an answer, Nina replied calmly. Adrian almost smiled. No, he admitted. It is not. What exactly are you asking from me? Consistency, Adrian said. What does that mean? It means when she wakes at 2 in the morning, someone she trusts is there. Silence stretched briefly. I am not her mother, Nina said softly. No, Adrian agreed. But tonight she believed you could be. That is exactly what worries me. You fear attachment. I fear loss. The honesty did not surprise Adrian. Loss is unavoidable, he said quietly. Then why invite more of it? Because avoiding attachment is also a loss. Another pause. What happened to her parents? Nina asked. Interstate collision, Adrian said. Instant? No. Nina inhaled quietly. Children often sensed unfinished goodbyes. She needs routine, Nina said. She has everything. She does not need everything, Nina replied. She needs predictable moments. Adrian leaned slightly back in his chair. What would you change first? Her mornings, Nina answered immediately. Explain. She wakes afraid because night feels endless. Adrian listened. She needs something consistent when she opens her eyes. Such as? A voice she recognizes. Adrian nodded slowly. You speak as if you have done this before. My mother was ill for 3 years, Nina said. I learned what fear sounds like when people try to hide it. Adrian said nothing. I would like to meet her tomorrow, Nina added. You may. No staff present. Adrian paused. Security will remain discreet. I understand protection, Nina said, but I need her to feel normal. Normal. The word sounded unfamiliar in Adrian's world. What time, he asked. Morning. You will be collected at 8. I will meet you there myself, Nina replied calmly. Adrian appreciated clarity. Very well. Another pause lingered between them. Mr. Volkov, Nina added. Yes. I did not help her because of money. I know. I helped her because no child should cry that way in public. Adrian's voice lowered slightly. She does not cry for attention. She cries because she does not understand why love disappeared, Nina said gently. The truth landed quietly between them. I will see you tomorrow, Nina said. Tomorrow, Adrian confirmed. The call ended. Adrian remained still for several seconds. Then Victor spoke from the doorway. You trust her? I trust my daughter's instinct, Adrian replied. And if instinct is wrong? Adrian turned slightly. Then I correct it. Upstairs, Lyly stirred in her sleep. Mrs. Calder hummed softly from the nursery. The same lullaby Nina had used earlier. Lyly did not wake. For the first time in 8 weeks, the house did not echo with crying. Adrian stood in the hallway outside the nursery door longer than necessary. He did not enter. He simply listened. Quiet had become unfamiliar. Quiet felt fragile. Quiet felt valuable. Sometimes power protected assets. Sometimes power protected legacy. But tonight, Adrian Volkov began to understand something more difficult. Power could build walls, but only trust could build home. Morning would test whether Nina Bennett was temporary comfort, or the beginning of something far more dangerous. Morning arrived with quiet discipline at the Volkov estate. The sunlight filtered gently through tall windows, casting long golden reflections across polished wooden floors. Outside, early spring air carried the faint scent of damp earth and trimmed hedges. The property remained still, protected by layers of security most guests never noticed. Inside the nursery, Lyly sat on a soft cream-colored rug, surrounded by wooden blocks shaped like animals. Mrs. Calder watched from a respectful distance, knitting slowly, her movements calm and practiced. She did not interrupt children when they attempted independence. Lyly stacked the blocks carefully, then hesitated when one piece slipped and fell. Her small hand hovered uncertainly over the tower. She did not cry. That alone felt like progress. At exactly 8:03 a.m., the front doors opened. Nina stepped inside, guided by Victor's quiet presence. She wore simple clothes, a soft beige sweater, dark jeans, low heels practical enough for movement, no perfume strong enough to overwhelm a child's sensitive senses, no jewelry that might distract curious fingers. Prepared. Mrs. Calder studied Nina carefully. You must be Miss Bennett. Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Calder nodded approvingly. You arrived early. I prefer not to rush children, Nina replied gently. Mrs. Calder gestured toward the play area. She has been awake for 40 minutes. Quiet. Curious. Nina stepped slowly into the room. Lyly noticed movement immediately. Her fingers tightened slightly around the wooden rabbit block. Her eyes searched Nina's face carefully. Recognition flickered. Nina crouched slowly, keeping her movements predictable. Good morning, Lyly, she said softly. Lyly blinked. Her lips parted slightly. A small pause. Then, Mommy? Mrs. Calder inhaled quietly. Nina did not react with surprise. She did not correct the child. She simply smiled gently. "Good morning," she repeated softly. Lyly stood carefully, small steps uncertain but determined. Then she moved forward and reached for Nina's sleeve. No crying, no hesitation, just quiet certainty. Nina sat cross-legged on the rug, allowing Lyly to decide the distance. Lyly climbed into her lap naturally, resting her head lightly against Nina's shoulder. Mrs. Calder lowered her knitting slowly. Adrian watched silently from the doorway. He had entered without announcement. He observed details most people missed. Lily's breathing remained calm. Her fingers did not tremble. Her eyes remained open, alert, trusting. Children did not negotiate trust. They either felt safe or they did not. "You came," Adrian said finally. Nina nodded slightly but did not stand. "I said I would." Lily's hand rested lightly against Nina's collar. No anxiety, no searching glances, no panic. "She usually cries when she sees someone unfamiliar," Mrs. Calder said quietly. "I'm not unfamiliar," Nina replied gently. Lyly played with the silver chain around Nina's neck, fascinated by the small reflection of light. Adrian stepped further into the room. Lyly noticed him. Her small body tensed slightly. Then she looked back at Nina, then back at Adrian. "Papa," she said quietly. Adrian stopped walking. That word had not been spoken easily. Not since the funeral. Not since the empty car seat. Not since silence had replaced laughter. Nina spoke gently. He stayed. Lyly studied Adrian's face carefully. Then she reached one hand toward him. Not fully, just enough. Adrian moved closer slowly, careful not to rush the fragile moment. Lyly did not cry. She allowed Adrian to sit beside Nina on the rug, close enough to feel present, far enough not to overwhelm. "She remembers," Nina said quietly. "Children remember presence." Adrian nodded once. "She stopped sleeping," he said. "Night is when absence feels loudest," Nina replied. Lyly picked up a wooden horse and offered it to Adrian. A simple gesture, but deliberate. Adrian accepted it carefully. "Thank you," he said. Lyly smiled faintly. Nina observed quietly. "She tests safety," Nina explained softly. "How?" "She gives small trust first." Lyly leaned lightly against Nina again. Adrian spoke. "You believe routine will help?" "Yes." "You believe consistency replaces fear?" "No," Nina said gently. "Nothing replaces loss." Adrian's gaze sharpened slightly. "Then what helps?" "Predictability." Lyly stacked blocks slowly beside them. "When children cannot control change," Nina continued, "they search for things that stay the same." Adrian listened carefully. "She needs mornings that feel familiar," Nina added. "She wakes expecting someone to disappear." Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. Nina continued. "She needs proof that people return." Lyly leaned into Nina's shoulder again. No distress, only quiet attachment. Adrian spoke carefully. "If you accept this position, your responsibilities will be clear." "I would like clarity," Nina replied calmly. "You will live here?" "Yes." "You will prioritize her well-being?" "Yes." "You will maintain discretion?" "I already do." Adrian paused. "You will be protected. I do not want to feel imprisoned." "You will not be." Lyly placed a wooden block into Nina's hand. An invitation to participate. Nina placed the block gently onto the growing tower. Lyly smiled. A real smile this time. Not accidental. Not reflex. Intentional. Mrs. Calder placed her knitting aside completely. "I have not seen that expression in weeks," she said quietly. Adrian asked, "What do you require?" Nina considered carefully. "Honesty." Adrian did not respond immediately. "I do not tolerate manipulation," Nina added. "You will not be manipulated. I need authority regarding her emotional environment." "You will have it." "I need communication." "You will have direct access to me." Lyly leaned slightly toward Adrian again. He remained still, allowing her pace. "She is watching how you respond," Nina said softly. "To what?" "To whether she is safe loving you." Adrian's expression remained composed, but something behind his eyes shifted. "Children believe absence is punishment," Nina added. "She believes she did something wrong." Lyly placed her hand gently over Adrian's wrist. Tentative. Adrian did not move away. "I did not know how to comfort her," Adrian admitted quietly. "Grief is not solved," Nina said. "It is witnessed." Lyly placed another block carefully on top of the tower. It wobbled slightly. She looked at Nina. Nina steadied it gently. Lyly laughed softly. A small sound, but unmistakable. Adrian looked down briefly, then back at Nina. You understand children. I understand loneliness, Nina replied calmly. Adrian extended his hand. Welcome to the Volkov home, Miss Bennett. Nina shook his hand once. Firm, professional, clear. Lyly leaned comfortably between them, holding the wooden rabbit. Trust had been offered. Now it had to be protected. Outside, security teams adjusted their positions. Inside, something quieter began forming. Not power, not obligation. Something more difficult. Stability, because in families shaped by sudden loss, stability was not simply comfort. It was survival, and sometimes the most important alliances were not formed through contracts, but through the quiet promise that someone would still be there in the morning. The Volkov estate followed a rhythm shaped by discipline. Breakfast was served at precisely 7:30 a.m. The dining room overlooked a quiet stretch of manicured garden, where trimmed hedges formed geometric patterns, designed decades earlier by Adrian's father. Order created calm. Predictability created control. Lyly sat in a high-backed chair beside Nina, her small hands resting near a plate of sliced strawberries and soft scrambled eggs prepared by Mrs. Calder. The child studied the fork with careful concentration, as if relearning the ordinary tasks of life one small movement at a time. Nina did not rush her. Routine, she believed, was built through patience. Try holding it like this, Nina said gently, guiding Lily's fingers lightly. Lyly watched carefully, then imitated the motion. Success. A small bite. A quiet victory. Adrian observed from the head of the table. Coffee untouched. He was accustomed to negotiations worth millions, to decisions that affected entire networks of influence. Yet the sight of a child calmly eating breakfast felt unexpectedly significant. 2 weeks earlier, Lyly had refused to eat unless someone physically stayed beside her. Now she fed herself. Incremental progress mattered. Mrs. Calder placed warm toast on the table. Children find confidence in repetition, she said approvingly. Nina nodded. Consistency teaches safety. Lyly looked up at Nina. Sty? I'm right here, Nina replied softly. Adrian noticed the question. Lyly did not ask where her parents were anymore. Now she asked who would remain. That difference mattered. After breakfast, Nina introduced a simple structure. Morning walk. Story time. Quiet play. Lunch. Rest. Children trusted patterns more easily than promises. The estate garden stretched across several acres, enclosed by discreet security measures invisible to untrained eyes. Cameras were positioned where architecture allowed concealment. Motion sensors blended into stone edges. Protection did not need to be obvious to be effective. Nina pushed Lyly slowly along the garden path in a small stroller, allowing her to observe surroundings at her own pace. The air carried early spring coolness. Birdsong created natural background sound. Lyly held a small stuffed rabbit Nina had found in the nursery closet. New? Nina asked gently. Lyly nodded. Rabbit stays, Lyly said. Yes, Nina smiled. Rabbit stays. Security remained distant, but present. Adrian watched from the terrace above, speaking quietly into his phone. Yes. Pause. I want confirmation on the vehicle report. Pause. No mistakes. Pause. Double-check the timeline. He ended the call. Victor approached from behind. You believe the accident was intentional, Victor said. I believe coincidences should be verified, Adrian replied calmly. Insurance investigators found nothing suspicious. Insurance investigators do not search for motive, Adrian answered. Lyly laughed faintly below as Nina pointed toward a fountain. The sound carried upward. Adrian listened. That child is the last living member of my brother's immediate family, Adrian continued. Then she is an asset, Victor said carefully. Adrian's gaze sharpened. She is family. Victor inclined his head. Understood. Adrian rarely repeated himself. Later that afternoon, Nina organized the playroom carefully. Toys were arranged in visible categories. Books placed at reachable height. Soft lighting replaced harsh overhead brightness. Children processed safety through environment. Lyly watched quietly, holding the rabbit. Blocks here, Nina explained gently. Lyly placed one wooden piece carefully into the basket. Positive reinforcement required simplicity. Good choice, Nina said. Lyly smiled faintly. Mrs. Calder observed from the doorway. You've done this before, she said. No, Nina replied honestly. I've learned what absence feels like. Lyly carried a picture book toward Nina. Story? Yes. Nina smiled. They sat together near the window. Nina read slowly, allowing pauses for Lyly to observe illustrations. Rhythm mattered more than speed. Adrian passed the doorway unnoticed. He listened briefly. The story was simple. A small bird learning to fly after losing its nest. Not coincidence. Intentional selection. Nina spoke softly. Sometimes change feels scary. Lyly rested her head lightly against Nina's arm. But change doesn't mean alone, Nina continued. Lyly's fingers tightened slightly around the rabbit. Adrian continued walking. He did not interrupt. He did not comment. But he noticed. At 4:15 p.m., Victor entered the study carrying a thin folder. We confirmed traffic camera footage, he said. Adrian gestured once. Speak. The truck that collided with your brother's vehicle appeared 2 minutes earlier on a different route than originally reported. Adrian remained silent. The driver has no prior criminal history, Victor continued. But he disappeared after hospital release. How does someone disappear after causing a fatal accident? We are investigating. Adrian's voice lowered slightly. Accelerate that investigation. Yes, boss. Pause. Do not involve law enforcement yet. Victor understood immediately. Information traveled differently in Adrian's world. Meanwhile, upstairs, Nina prepared Lyly's evening routine. Warm bath, soft towel, quiet lighting. Predictability created emotional stability. Lyly resisted slightly when Nina left the bathroom briefly to retrieve pajamas. Stay, Lyly said quickly. I'm still here, Nina reassured gently, returning within seconds. Trust developed in small demonstrations. Dinner was served earlier for Lyly. Simple food, familiar textures. Mrs. Calder approved. Children eat better when they expect calm. After dinner, Nina sat beside Lyly on the nursery floor. A soft lamp created warm light. No loud toys tonight, Nina explained gently. Lyly nodded. Story? Yes. Adrian stood outside the partially open door. Unnoticed. Listening again, Nina's voice remained steady, unhurried. Lyly's breathing slowed gradually. Security teams rotated shifts downstairs. Kitchen staff prepared tea. The estate returned to evening quiet. Lyly's eyelids grew heavy. Stay, she murmured. I'll be right outside, Nina replied gently. Lyly considered, then nodded. Progress. Nina placed the rabbit beside her. Rabbit stays too. Lyly slept within minutes. Adrian stepped away from the doorway before Nina noticed. In the study, Victor waited. Update? The driver had financial difficulties before the accident, Victor said. Significant? Yes. Recent? Within 3 months prior. Adrian nodded slowly. Pressure creates mistakes. Or leverage, Victor added. Adrian poured a small glass of whiskey but did not drink. Continue tracing financial connections. Yes, boss. Pause. The young woman, Victor added carefully. Yes. She influences the child significantly. That is why she is here. Influence creates vulnerability. Adrian finally took a small sip. Everything valuable creates vulnerability. Upstairs, Nina turned off the nursery lamp slowly. She paused briefly beside the crib. Lyly slept peacefully, one small hand resting over the stuffed rabbit. Children did not pretend calm. They either felt safe, or they did not. Nina stepped into the hallway quietly. Adrian stood there, unexpected. You reorganized the playroom, he said. Yes. She responded well. Structure reduces anxiety. Adrian studied Nina carefully. You assume responsibility quickly. Children don't wait for adults to feel ready, Nina replied. Adrian nodded once. Mrs. Calder approves of you. She cares about Lyly. So do I. I know, Nina said calmly. Adrian paused. My world is not simple, he said. I did not accept this position expecting simplicity. She may become a target. Nina did not hesitate. She already was. The answer surprised him slightly. You are direct. I am practical. Adrian studied her for a moment longer. Do you regret accepting? No. Why? Nina considered briefly. Because she smiled today. Adrian exhaled quietly. Small victories mattered more than public triumphs. Because sometimes the strongest protection was not force, but the quiet decision that someone would not face loss alone again. Lyly woke before sunrise. The house was still quiet, wrapped in the gentle gray light that comes just before morning fully arrives. For a moment she did not move, her small fingers resting lightly against the soft ear of the stuffed rabbit beside her cheek. Then her eyes opened. Confusion came first. Children who experience sudden loss often wake, with a brief moment of hope, a fragile belief that everything bad had simply been a dream. Lyly sat up slowly. She looked toward the doorway. The room remained the same. Soft lamp, wooden shelves, curtains slightly open. Her parents did not appear. Her breathing quickened. The first sound escaped her lips, not yet a cry, but the beginning of one. "Nina." The door opened almost immediately. "I'm here," Nina said gently. Lily's shoulders relaxed before the tears could fall. Predictability. That was the first lesson Nina wanted Lyly to trust. Nina entered calmly, not rushing, not alarming the child with sudden urgency. "You woke early today," Nina said softly. Lyly reached for her instinctively. Nina lifted her carefully, holding her close but not tightly. Children who feared abandonment often tested physical distance repeatedly. "I thought you left," Lyly murmured sleepily. "I told you I would stay," Nina replied gently. Lyly studied her face carefully. "You promise?" "I promise to come back every morning," Nina said. "Not forever, not impossible guarantees, only what could truly be kept." Lyly nodded slowly. Trust formed through kept promises. Downstairs, Mrs. Calder had already prepared oatmeal with cinnamon and warm apple slices. Lyly sat beside Nina, her small spoon moving slowly through the bowl. "Too hot?" Nina asked. Lyly shook her head. "Blow," she said, imitating Nina's gentle breath. Adrian entered the dining room shortly after, dressed in a dark navy suit. He paused briefly when he saw Lyly eating calmly. Small changes did not go unnoticed. "You are up early," Adrian said. Lyly looked at him. "Papa working?" "Yes," Adrian replied. Lyly nodded as if accepting something she did not fully understand but no longer feared. Nina noticed the interaction. "Routine helps her anticipate separation," she said quietly. Adrian took his seat. "You believe predictability reduces anxiety?" "Yes." "You sound certain." "I am observant." Adrian almost smiled. After breakfast, Nina introduced structured play. Lyly sat on the playroom floor while Nina demonstrated simple sorting activities using colored wooden shapes. "Blue here," Nina said gently. Lyly studied the piece, placed it correctly. "Good thinking," Nina encouraged. Confidence often grew from repeated success. Lyly attempted another shape. "Incorrect placement." She frowned slightly. Nina did not correct immediately. Instead, she asked, "Does it feel right?" Lyly tilted her head, then moved the shape to the correct section. A small smile appeared. Problem-solving created ownership of success. From the hallway, Adrian watched briefly before continuing toward his office. He trusted systems. He valued competence. He respected consistency. Nina demonstrated all three. At 10:15 a.m., Victor entered the study carrying updated documents. "The driver's financial records show large deposits 1 week before the accident," he reported. "Source?" Adrian asked. "Layered transfers. Shell accounts." "Professional?" "Yes." Adrian leaned slightly back in his chair. "And after the accident?" "No activity." "Meaning?" "Funds delivered before completion of task." Adrian's voice lowered slightly. "Trace the origin." "We are trying." "Try faster." "Yes, boss." Adrian stood and walked toward the window. Below, Nina helped Lyly water small plants along the garden wall. A child-sized watering can. Carefully measured effort. "Too much water hurts the roots," Nina explained. Lyly poured slowly. Carefully. Responsibility, even symbolic responsibility, created confidence. Victor spoke again. "You believe your brother was targeted. I believe coincidence should not involve financial incentive." Lyly laughed softly as water splashed slightly onto her shoes. Nina laughed with her. The sound carried upward. Adrian noticed something unfamiliar. The house did not feel hollow. Later that afternoon, Nina introduced quiet reading time. Lyly sat beside her holding a cloth book with textured pages. "Soft," Lyly said. "Yes." Nina smiled. Lyly touched each page slowly. Sensory familiarity helped anchor emotional stability. Mrs. Calder observed again from the doorway. "She follows you closely," she said. "Attachment is not dependency," Nina replied softly. "It is trust learning where to rest." Lyly leaned against Nina's side. No tension, no fear. Security teams rotated outside. Life inside the estate began to resemble something close to normal. At 3:40 p.m., Adrian received a call. Speak. Pause. Yes. Pause. Do not escalate yet. Pause. Observe. He ended the call slowly. Every development regarding the accident suggested careful orchestration, intentional harm disguised as tragedy. Lyly's presence in his life was no longer coincidence. It was motive. Protection would now require strategy. Meanwhile, Nina introduced a transitional ritual before evening rest. Soft piano music played quietly from a speaker placed at low volume. Lyly placed the stuffed rabbit beside a small blanket. Rabbit sleeps too, Lyly said. Yes, Nina replied. Everything that stays deserves rest. Lyly climbed into the small bed without resistance. Progress again. Nina sat beside her for several minutes, allowing the rhythm of calm breathing to stabilize. I stay, Lyly murmured. I'm right outside, Nina answered gently. Lyly nodded slowly. Trust was becoming habit. Downstairs, Adrian waited in the study. Nina entered after ensuring Lyly slept peacefully. You adapt quickly, Adrian said. Children do not wait for adults to organize emotions. Nina replied calmly. Adrian studied her carefully. She asked if I left. Nina added. And? I told her I return every morning. Adrian nodded once. Promises should be measurable. I do not promise forever. That is wise. Silence settled briefly. You believe she will recover, Adrian said. She will learn to live with loss, Nina corrected gently. Adrian exhaled slowly. What do you need from me? Presence, Nina replied. I am present. You are near, Nina said softly. Those are not always the same. Adrian considered the distinction. You believe she needs emotional availability. Yes. You speak like a psychologist. I speak like someone who has lost family. Adrian nodded once. Shared understanding did not require identical history. I will adjust my schedule, Adrian said. Nina inclined her head slightly. Lyly's progress was not miracle. It was structure, consistency, patience, because healing rarely arrived dramatically. It arrived quietly, in repeated mornings, in predictable voices, in someone showing up again and again until fear grew tired of waiting for abandonment. And sometimes the greatest turning points did not come through force, but through the simple decision that a child would not have to search the room to find who stayed. The first sign of danger did not come from violence. It came from silence. 3 days passed with a rhythm that almost resembled normal life. Lyly woke without tears more often than not. She began recognizing familiar sounds. Mrs. Calder's measured footsteps, the soft hum of the coffee machine, the distant murmur of security radios adjusting frequencies. Routine had begun weaving stability into the fragile structure of her world. That morning, Lyly sat beside Nina at the kitchen island, carefully placing slices of banana onto a small plate. One for Rabbit, Lyly said seriously, placing a slice beside the stuffed toy. One for Lyly, Nina replied with a small smile. One for Papa? Lyly asked. Nina nodded. Yes, Papa eats too. Lyly seemed satisfied with the distribution of fairness. Across the room, Adrian watched quietly, a mug of black coffee warming his hands. He had begun adjusting his schedule. Not dramatically, not publicly, but consistently. Small changes. Breakfast presents. Shorter calls in the morning. Delayed meetings when possible. Powerful men did not often rearrange priorities. But fathers did. Victor entered discreetly, pausing at the edge of the room. May I speak with you? Adrian nodded once and stepped into the adjacent study. The door remained slightly open, not fully closed, not fully public. Calculated transparency. We traced the shell accounts, Victor said quietly. And? The funds originated from an investment group with connections to the Petrov syndicate. Adrian's expression remained still. The same group negotiating port access last year? Yes. Motivation? Pressure. For what? Territory redistribution. Adrian leaned slightly against the desk. My brother was not involved in territorial negotiations. No, Victor agreed. But you were. Silence settled. Collateral leverage, Adrian said finally. That is our assumption. Lyly's laughter echoed faintly from the kitchen. Adrian did not turn his head. Who benefits from destabilizing my position? Competitors testing weakness, Victor answered carefully. And a child becomes leverage. Yes. Adrian's voice lowered slightly. Unacceptable. Meanwhile, Nina guided Lyly toward the sunroom for morning activity. Soft light filtered through tall glass panels. Indoor plants created a calm environment that softened architectural severity. Lyly carried her rabbit under one arm. "Water?" she asked. "Yes," Nina smiled. Lyly filled the small watering can with assistance. Pouring slowly required concentration. Focus reduced anxiety. Children found safety in manageable tasks. "You help things grow," Nina said gently. Lyly looked at the small leaves. "They stay?" "Yes," Nina replied. "They stay because someone cares for them." Lyly nodded thoughtfully. Adrian entered quietly. He observed before speaking. "She sleeps longer now." "Yes," Nina replied. "She trusts the morning." Adrian folded his arms loosely. "Trust creates vulnerability." "Yes," Nina agreed, "but also stability." Lyly offered the watering can toward Adrian. "Papa, help." Adrian accepted the small object carefully. Symbolic participation mattered. He poured water gently into the soil. Lyly watched closely. "You did not rush," Nina noted quietly. "Children recognize impatience," Adrian replied. "You are learning quickly." "I am observant." Lyly smiled faintly. Moments like this could not be purchased. They had to be earned. Later that afternoon, Nina noticed a subtle change in Lyly's behavior. During story time, Lyly paused frequently to look toward the doorway. Her fingers tightened slightly around the rabbit's ear. "Something feels different?" Nina asked gently. Lyly nodded slowly. "Noise," she said. Nina listened carefully. Faint engine sound outside the usual schedule. Security vehicles rarely deviated without reason. Nina made no visible reaction. Children mirrored adult responses. "If something feels unfamiliar, we observe calmly," Nina said softly. Lyly nodded again. Observation empowered rather than frightened. Downstairs, Victor spoke quickly into his communication device. "Unscheduled vehicle at outer gate. Pause. License confirmed?" "Pause. Hold position." Adrian approached. "What is it?" "Courier delivery not listed in today's manifest." "Origin?" "Unknown." Adrian's voice lowered slightly. "Delay entry." "Yes, boss." Outside, a dark sedan idled near the first security checkpoint. Routine disruptions rarely occurred accidentally. Adrian stepped toward the surveillance monitor. "Magnify the rear window." Victor adjusted the display. The driver remained inside. No visible markings. No company insignia. No advance notification. Adrian spoke calmly. "Request identification verbally." The guard approached the vehicle. Moments passed. Then, "He claims legal documentation delivery," Victor relayed. "From whom?" "No sender name provided." Adrian's gaze hardened slightly. "No package enters without verification." "Yes, boss." The car remained outside the gate. Patience often exposed intention. Upstairs, Nina continued reading calmly. Lyly's breathing steadied again. "Change does not always mean danger," Nina said gently. Lyly repeated softly. "Observe." "Yes," Nina smiled. "You observe." Children learned emotional regulation through repetition. Adrian entered the sunroom 15 minutes later. "False delivery," he said quietly. Nina nodded once. Lyly did not react. "Good." Adult tension had not transferred to the child. "Precaution?" Nina asked. "Yes." Lyly stacked blocks beside the window. Her focus remained intact. Progress continued. Even with external pressure, Adrian studied Nina briefly. "You noticed her reaction. She senses environmental change. You remained calm. Children borrow emotional responses from adults." Adrian nodded slowly. "You adapt quickly to uncertainty." "Children do not choose the environments they live in," Nina replied. "We choose how stable we make those environments feel." Lyly placed the final block carefully. Tower balanced. No collapse. Small symbol. Adrian's phone vibrated once. Encrypted message. Victor spoke quietly. "We identified partial fingerprint match from vehicle registration." "And?" "Connected to a former logistics manager dismissed 18 months ago." "Reason?" "Financial irregularities." Adrian's voice cooled slightly. "Track current employer." "Yes, boss." Lyly yawned softly. Nina lifted her gently. "Rest time." Lyly did not resist. Routine prevailed again. As Nina carried Lyly toward the nursery, the child rested her head against Nina's shoulder. "Stay," Lyly whispered. "I stay." Nina answered softly. Downstairs, Adrian remained near the window. Threats rarely arrived loudly. Often they arrived disguised as paperwork, as routine. as coincidence, but Adrian Volkov did not believe in coincidence, especially when a child's safety intersected with unresolved business. Because in his world, danger did not announce itself. It waited patiently for moments of emotional distraction, and now there was something new in Adrian's life that could be used against him, something he was no longer willing to lose. Hope had entered the house quietly. Now it had to be protected carefully. The night Lyly's nightmares returned. The rain did not stop. Water slid slowly down the tall windows of the Volkov estate, blurring the outside world into streaks of gray light and shadow. Thunder rolled distantly over the city, not violent, but persistent enough to remind anyone awake that the world beyond the walls remained unpredictable. At 2:17 a.m., the security monitor registered movement in the nursery. Not panic, restlessness. Nina was already awake. Loss had trained her to hear small changes in breathing, small shifts in silence. Lyly whimpered softly, her small body twisting beneath the light cotton blanket. The stuffed rabbit had fallen to the floor unnoticed. "Mommy," the word broke halfway into a breath. Nina entered immediately but without urgency, careful not to startle her further. "I'm here," she whispered. Lily's eyes remained closed. Night terrors did not always wake children fully. They trapped them somewhere between memory and fear. Her small hands reached blindly into the air. Nina sat beside the bed and gently placed the rabbit back into Lily's arms. "You're safe," Nina said softly. Lily's breathing remained uneven. No car, no loud. Fragments. Memory without context. Nina placed her hand gently over Lily's shoulder. "Listen to my voice," she said calmly. Outside, rain tapped against glass with steady rhythm. Inside, Nina began humming the same lullaby Lyly had heard the first night they met. Consistency built bridges between fear and memory. Lily's breathing slowly began to slow. "I stay," Nina whispered. Lily's fingers tightened weakly in Nina's sleeve. "Stay. I'm right here." Minutes passed. Eventually, Lyly's body relaxed. Sleep returned cautiously. Not perfect, but stable. From the doorway, Adrian watched silently. He had not heard the child cry like that since Nina arrived. Yet trauma did not disappear simply because routine improved. It waited. It resurfaced. It tested. Adrian spoke quietly once Lily's breathing stabilized. "She remembers the accident." "Yes," Nina answered. "She was in the car." The words remained heavy. "Yes," Adrian confirmed. Nina did not ask for details. Details rarely help children heal. Presence did. "She fears loud sounds," Nina said gently. "She fears sudden absence." Adrian nodded. "I could not reach the hospital in time," he said quietly. Nina did not respond immediately. Guilt often hid beneath responsibility. "She does not need explanations yet," Nina said softly. "She needs reassurance." Adrian watched Lily's small hand rest over the rabbit's worn ear. "I am not trained for this," he admitted. "You are present," Nina replied. "That is where most fathers begin." Adrian remained silent. He had faced negotiations involving millions without hesitation. Yet emotional responsibility felt unfamiliar. "She looks for you when she wakes," Nina added. "I have meetings. You also have a daughter." Adrian accepted the correction without argument. Morning arrived slowly. Rain continued lightly. Lyly remained calm during breakfast, though quieter than usual. She held the rabbit close, occasionally glancing toward windows when thunder rolled distantly. Nina maintained routine. Oatmeal, warm tea, predictable pace. "Storm loud," Lyly said. "Yes," Nina replied, "but loud does not mean dangerous." Lyly nodded slowly. Understanding required repetition. At 9:30 a.m., Victor entered Adrian's office with new information. "The former logistics manager we identified has transferred funds to 3 temporary accounts within the last 48 hours. Adrian leaned slightly forward. "Recipients?" 2 accounts tied to private surveillance contractors. "And the third?" Victor hesitated briefly. "A consulting firm with connections to Petrov's syndicate intermediaries." Adrian's gaze hardened. "They are observing." "Yes." "Or preparing." Lily's laughter echoed faintly from the hallway. Adrian listened. His brother had believed family should never pay for business decisions. Adrian had once believed he could separate the two. Now separation no longer seemed possible. Later that afternoon, Nina introduced a simple drawing activity in the sunroom. Lyly held a blue crayon carefully. "What shall we draw today?" Nina asked gently. Lyly hesitated, then drew 3 small circles. One larger, two smaller beside it. Family, Lyly said quietly. Nina did not correct the number. She simply nodded. Yes, family. Lyly added another small shape beside the larger circle. This Nina. Then another beside that. This Papa. Nina watched carefully. Children often express truth through symbols before language allowed explanation. Lyly studied the drawing, then pressed the crayon harder. Car go fast, she said. Nina remained calm. Yes. Loud noise. Yes. Lily's hand paused. Then quiet. Nina placed her hand gently over Lily's wrist. We are here now. Lyly nodded slowly, then drew a small square beside the figures. House. Yes, Nina said softly. A safe house. Lyly smiled faintly. From the doorway, Adrian observed the drawing. Children did not lie. They simplified. Family. Car. Silence. House. Protection. That night, Adrian increased security rotation without announcement. Additional surveillance installed at secondary perimeter points. Vehicle identification protocols tightened. Information flowed through encrypted channels only. No visible alarm. No visible change. Nina noticed subtle differences immediately. Security presence felt slightly closer. Communication earpieces more active. Children sensed environmental tension even when adults believed they concealed it. Change? Lyly asked quietly during bedtime routine. Precaution, Nina replied gently. Precaution means adults make sure tomorrow feels the same as today. Lyly considered this. Tomorrow same? Yes. Same breakfast? Yes. Same story? Yes. Samey Nina? Nina smiled softly. Yes. Lyly relaxed beneath the blanket. Trust grew in repetition. Downstairs, Adrian stood alone near the study window. City lights flickered faintly beyond distant trees. Power had always meant anticipating threat, but now threat had form, not contracts, not territory. A child drawing a family with one space permanently empty, and another space newly filled. Victor entered quietly. We confirmed surveillance activity near the southern access road earlier this afternoon. Adrian did not turn. They are patient. Yes, patience can be useful. Lily's soft voice echoed faintly upstairs as Nina read the final page of the bedtime story. Peace remained intact. For now, Adrian spoke quietly. Increase monitoring but maintain normal routine. Yes, boss. Because fear could not become Lily's new environment. And because the most dangerous battles were not always fought with weapons, sometimes they were fought by protecting the illusion of safety long enough for a child to believe it was real. And Adrian Volkov intended to win this battle without allowing Lyly to know it had ever begun. The request arrived without warning. It did not come through official channels, nor through the careful intermediaries Adrian usually dealt with when negotiations were unavoidable. It appeared instead as a message delivered through a secure line known only to a small circle of high-level operators, the kind of line used when someone wanted attention without creating public trace. Victor entered Adrian's office without knocking. That was fast, Adrian said quietly, closing the document he had been reviewing. They are escalating, Victor replied. Adrian gestured for him to continue. The Petrov intermediaries are requesting a meeting. Purpose? They claim to seek clarification regarding territorial misunderstandings. Adrian's expression did not change. Misunderstandings rarely involve hired surveillance. No. What is their leverage? Victor paused briefly. They mentioned family stability. Silence settled heavily across the room. Subtle, Adrian said calmly. Yes, they are testing boundaries. And suggesting they know about Lyly, Victor added carefully. Adrian stood slowly, walking toward the window overlooking the eastern garden. Lyly sat outside with Nina, carefully arranging small stones along the garden path. She placed each stone deliberately, forming a curved line she seemed to understand without explanation. Children often created order when their internal world felt uncertain. They will request concession, Adrian said. Yes. And if denied? Pressure increases. Adrian's voice lowered slightly. They chose the wrong pressure point. Downstairs, Nina observed Lily's careful concentration. What are we building? Nina asked gently. Road, Lyly replied. Where does the road go? Lyly pointed toward the large oak tree. Home. Nina nodded. Roads help us find our way. Lyly placed another stone carefully. Road stay? Yes, Nina said softly. Road stays. Security presence felt subtly closer today. Movement patterns slightly adjusted. vehicles rotating earlier than usual. Nina did not ask questions. Children sensed tension best when adults pretended none existed. Routine continued. Routine protected stability. Inside the study, Adrian spoke calmly. Schedule the meeting. Location? Victor asked. Neutral ground. They will expect demonstration of strength. They will receive demonstration of patience. Pause. You anticipate manipulation? I anticipate negotiation disguised as concern. Lily's laughter carried faintly through the open terrace doors. Adrian listened. They believe I will prioritize business continuity. And you will not? I will prioritize my daughter. Victor inclined his head slightly. Clarity, simplified strategy. That afternoon, Nina introduced a sensory activity using warm dough. Lyly pressed her small hands carefully into the soft material. Soft, she said. Yes. Lyly pressed harder. The shape changed slowly. Change okay? Lyly asked. Yes. Nina smiled. Change is okay when someone helps guide it. Lyly nodded thoughtfully. The metaphor settled quietly into understanding. Adrian observed from a distance. He noticed how Nina introduced emotional language through simple experiences. She did not overwhelm. She did not explain more than necessary. She allowed understanding to grow naturally. Later, Victor approached again. Meeting confirmed for tomorrow evening. Participants? Petrov, representative, and 2 advisors. Security level? Standard negotiation protocol. Adrian nodded once. Prepare contingency routes. Yes, boss. And verify internal communications. Victor understood immediately. Leaks often came from unexpected places. Lyly napped peacefully that afternoon. Predictable rest cycles helped regulate emotional stability. Nina reviewed the evening schedule with Mrs. Calder. Same dinner time? Yes, Nina confirmed. Same story. Consistency protected the child's sense of continuity. When Lyly woke, she seemed unusually quiet. Her fingers gripped the rabbit more tightly than usual. Thinking? Nina asked gently. Lyly nodded. Storm gone. Yes. Car Loud not come back? Nina paused briefly. No loud car today. Lyly accepted the answer. Children did not need complete truth. They needed emotional safety. That evening, Adrian adjusted dinner timing to join them. Small presence. Large meaning. Lyly noticed immediately. Papa eat, she said. Yes, Adrian replied. They sat together quietly. Mrs. Calder served roasted chicken, soft vegetables, warm bread. Traditional meals created grounding familiarity. Lyly dipped bread carefully into soup. Nina encouraged independence. Adrian allowed small mess without correction. Connection required tolerance. Lyly looked between them both. Family, she said softly. Neither adult corrected her. After dinner, Nina read the same story used 2 nights earlier. Repetition reinforced emotional predictability. Lyly leaned against Nina's shoulder but reached one hand toward Adrian. Balanced attachment. Healthy development. Adrian accepted the small gesture. Trust expanded. Downstairs, Victor reviewed final meeting logistics. The Petrov intermediary insists discussion concerns mutual benefit. Adrian did not react. They prefer language that hides intent. Yes. They believe suggestion of risk will create compliance. Yes. Adrian's voice remained calm. They misunderstand my priorities. Later that night, Lyly placed the rabbit carefully beside her pillow. Tomorrow same? Yes, Nina said gently. Same breakfast. Lyly nodded. Samey Nina. Yes. Lyly looked toward Adrian. Sami Papa? Adrian answered quietly. Yes. The promise held weight beyond words. After Lyly slept, Adrian stood in the hallway. Nina joined him quietly. Something is changing, she said calmly. Yes. You will protect her. Yes. Nina studied his expression briefly. Protection also means protecting her peace. I understand. Conflict affects children even when unseen. Adrian nodded once. My conflict will remain unseen. Nina accepted the answer. Trust sometimes meant believing effort would be made. Victor approached from the far end of the hallway. All arrangements confirmed. Adrian turned slightly. Tomorrow remains routine. Yes, boss. Because no matter what negotiation occurred outside those walls, one rule would not change. Lyly's morning would remain predictable. Her breakfast would remain warm. Her story would remain the same. Her sense of safety would remain intact. Because in the Volkov house, business could adapt. Power could shift. Alliances could change, but a child learning to trust again could not afford instability. And Adrian Volkov intended to ensure that whatever happened at the negotiation table, Lyly would never again feel the world disappear without warning. The meeting took place in a private dining room above an old financial office overlooking the East River. Neutral territory. No cameras inside. No unnecessary staff. Only quiet professionalism that allowed powerful men to speak without public consequence. Adrian arrived precisely on time. Punctuality was respect, and also control. Victor entered first, scanning the environment with trained awareness. 2 additional security professionals remained outside the building perimeter, discreet but ready. Inside, 3 men waited at the polished walnut table. Sergei Antonov represented the Petrov Syndicate's external negotiations. Mid-50s. Calm demeanor. Conservative suit. A man experienced enough to avoid unnecessary displays of dominance. 2 advisors sat beside him, silent observers. Adrian removed his coat slowly, placing it over the back of his chair. "Mr. Antonov," Adrian said. "Mr. Volkov," Antonov replied politely. No handshakes. Respect without intimacy. Wine was offered. Declined. Clarity was easier without distraction. Antonov spoke first. "We regret the tension that has developed between our organizations. Tension rarely develops without intention," Adrian replied calmly. Antonov inclined his head slightly. "Misunderstandings occur when influence expands rapidly. My influence has not changed recently. Perception sometimes changes faster than facts." Adrian did not respond. Antonov continued. "We believe cooperation benefits all parties, and pressure benefits one party," Adrian replied. Antonov allowed the comment to pass without denial. "We understand your recent personal circumstances have altered your priorities. My priorities remain unchanged. Family always changes priorities," Antonov said carefully. Silence settled briefly. Adrian's voice remained even. "You mentioned territorial misunderstanding." "Yes." "Specify." Antonov folded his hands calmly. "The Southern Distribution Corridor. That corridor has been under my management for 12 years. "Yes." "And remains stable." "Yes." Antonov's expression remained polite. Stability is fragile when attention becomes divided. Adrian's gaze sharpened slightly. "Clarify." Antonov leaned forward slightly. "We understand your niece now resides under your care." Adrian did not react. Children were not negotiation topics. Antonov continued. "A child introduces vulnerability. A child introduces responsibility," Adrian replied. Antonov nodded slowly. "Responsibility can be exploited by less disciplined competitors." Adrian's voice cooled slightly. "Are you offering protection or issuing warning?" "Offering cooperation." "Define cooperation." "A modest adjustment in territorial management in exchange for long-term operational stability." "Define adjustment." "A shared oversight structure." "No," Adrian replied calmly. Antonov did not appear surprised. "You refuse negotiation?" "I refuse leverage disguised as concern." Antonov folded his hands again. "We prefer to avoid unnecessary conflict." "As do I." Silence stretched across the table. Antonov finally spoke again. "Your brother was respected." Adrian's expression did not change. He believed stability protected family. Adrian leaned slightly forward. "My brother did not negotiate through threats." Antonov allowed the statement to settle. "We do not threaten children. Yet, you mentioned mine." Antonov exhaled slowly. "Information exists. Information becomes threat when spoken aloud." Neither man raised his voice. Power rarely required volume. Antonov nodded once. "We seek predictable structure." "You seek influence expansion," Adrian corrected. Antonov smiled faintly. "Influence always expands." "Not here." Silence again. Antonov studied Adrian carefully. "You are prepared to defend position." "Yes." "Even at cost." "Yes." Antonov leaned back slightly. "Then perhaps we proceed cautiously." "That would be wise." Antonov gestured lightly toward the window. "The city changes constantly." "Yes." "Control is temporary. Legacy is not." Antonov's eyes narrowed slightly in recognition of the distinction. Adrian stood. "This conversation is concluded." Antonov did not attempt to stop him. "Mr. Volkov," Antonov said calmly. "Yes." "Children should not grow up surrounded by tension." Adrian replied without hesitation. "They will not." Outside, The night air carried cool wind from the river. Victor approached immediately. No agreement? No concession. Escalation likely. Yes. Adrian entered the car. Increase protective protocols. Yes, boss. And continue financial tracing. Yes. Inside the Volkov estate, routine remained intact. Lyly slept peacefully, her breathing steady, one small hand resting over the stuffed rabbit's ear. Nina adjusted the blanket gently. Children sensed change even when words did not explain it. Lyly stirred slightly. Nina, I'm here, Nina whispered softly. Papa home? Yes. Lyly nodded, eyes still half closed. Family stay? Yes, Nina answered gently. Lyly relaxed again. Trust remained intact. Adrian entered the nursery doorway quietly. Nina looked up. It is handled, Adrian said calmly. For now? Nina asked. For now. That is enough for tonight, Nina replied softly. Lyly slept without disturbance. Adrian remained in the doorway for several seconds longer than necessary. He had protected territory before, protected reputation, protected structure. Now protection had different meaning. Not expansion, preservation. Victor waited in the hallway. Additional monitoring established. Discreetly, Adrian confirmed. Yes. Nina stepped quietly into the hallway, closing the nursery door halfway. She asked if tomorrow remains the same. Nina said. It does, Adrian replied. She needs consistency more than security presence. She will have both. Nina studied Adrian briefly. You chose family. Yes. Not all men do. Not all men understand what is truly valuable. Downstairs, Mrs. Calder prepared chamomile tea, a habit she maintained whenever tension touched the household atmosphere. Routine preserved dignity. Adrian stood near the window once more. City lights flickered beyond the distant trees. Power had once meant control over outcomes. Now power meant protecting a child's sense of normal life. Lily's drawing remained on the study desk. 3 figures. One home. No empty space. Nina's presence had not replaced loss, but it had created stability where chaos once lived. Children did not require perfect worlds. They required dependable people, and Adrian Volkov understood something clearly now. Justice was not always loud. Justice did not always appear in headlines. Sometimes justice meant ensuring the innocent never paid for the ambitions of the powerful. Upstairs, Lyly slept peacefully through the night. No nightmares, no sudden cries, only quiet breathing. The house remained still, protected not only by security systems and loyal men, but by something far more difficult to defend: trust. Because in the end, empires were remembered for power, but families were remembered for who stayed when everything else disappeared. This story reminds us that true strength is not measured by power, wealth, or control, but by the courage to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Even the strongest people carry invisible wounds, and sometimes healing begins not with grand gestures, but with simple presence, patience, and compassion. A child's trust cannot be bought. It must be earned through consistency and sincerity. The story teaches that family is not only defined by blood, but by those who choose to stay when life becomes difficult. In a world often driven by ambition and influence, quiet justice is found in loyalty, responsibility, and the decision to place love above pride. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.